Have you taken the moment ever to stop and look and see if there really is a person here, an I in the middle of you, in the center? That's what spiritual self-realization is being able to first take a deep look and see what is the nature of this self, the self-sense, the I. So is there really a thinker here? Thinking is happening, right? Thinking is happening. If you slow it down and take a look at the thoughts that are just coming and going, and look at them and notice them, become aware of them versus being lost in them, this forward leaning, even inside of being consciousness being glued to what's arising, what's presenting, what's being experienced, the thoughts themselves. We just sort of take it for granted because this is what we've heard all our lives, that we're a person. There's somebody who is thinking these thoughts. There's somebody who is feeling the feelings. There's someone who is experiencing what is taking place. All that is imagination. There is no somebody in the middle. But you cannot take someone else's word for it, no matter how many times you've heard this, no matter how much you would like to know it for yourself. You have to actually stop and take a look. It's not going to magically happen by reading spiritual texts or watching spiritual videos. It's not going to happen all by itself, okay? What the truth reveals itself via inquiry and looking. And that takes a stopping and a curiosity. I wonder, is there really a thinker here? I can see thinking is happening. Thoughts are coming and going. And you want to, as I said earlier, you want to be able to pull back and actually look and watch these thoughts. Not be so lost in them. I am these thoughts. I am lost in thought. It happens all the time, lost in thought. And we can't always be conscious. But that's part of the spiritual path, is becoming conscious, is making something conscious rather than being unconsciously lost in thought all the time, which can lead to thinking that that's what we are. We are these thoughts. So, is there really a thinker here? And then you stop and you look. Is there a thinker thinking these thoughts? I wonder. Is there, let's say some sensation comes up. Is there a feeler to these feelings? There's awareness of it. There's awareness of thought. That's being able to notice. That's this ability to be self-reflective, being aware of thoughts come and go based on your conditioning, based on the moment, based on what you contain inside. That's part of the conditioning, okay? Thoughts, they tend to repeat themselves. It's like the superhighway of established thoughts. And because they're so familiar, so many of these thoughts are familiar to ourselves. For instance, let's say we have some feelings of being unworthy, some unworthiness beliefs and feelings. Some of these thoughts may be just part of that superhighway of unworthiness. How could I have done that? Some kind of narration. Stupid me, look at that. How kicking yourself, Why did I say that? Did that look stupid, what I just did? Does what is coming out of my mouth make sense? That narration, the idea of being a somebody, is this neural pathways that are inside this conditioned pathway of thinking just goes bloop. Again, it presents itself in that way. And because it's so familiar and so patterned, that we start to really, really believe that this is what I am. What I am is the stream of thinking, and it must be true. Because of that, it must be true, this thinking. But there's a little bell that goes off for each human being at some point that is waking itself up. And you listen to videos like this that says, are you really a thinker? Or is thinking just happening? Just because it feels so familiar doesn't mean there's a thinker there. So it has to get unglued and unsticky from the content of what the thinking is about. Because like I said, that's familiar. It's got to be a me there because that's just how I believe myself to be, unworthy or extraordinary or funny or shy, kind, these qualities, personality qualities that are not a problem in themselves, only when they're believed to be and turn you into a construct of an I, so that identity is formed around it. I am shy. I am traumatized. I am spiritually elevated, a spiritual identity. I am rich. I am poor. I'm unlucky in life. All these things we take ourselves to be. Situations take place. Life is what it is. But that does not mean that there is an I there. So that's what you got to deconstruct. Deconstruct and look at, is there really an I here? Is there really a separate self here, a person? It feels like it. But just because something feels, does that mean that there's a feeler inside? There's feeling. Just because, and the same thing with experiencing, there's experiencing versus an experiencer. So just kind of look at all this and look at also at language. I am thinking versus thinking is happening. And just, you can change it around inside. You don't have to appear and speak like that. But thinking is happening, feeling is happening. There's sadness here. Does that mean that there's someone being sad? Or is sadness here? There's a rising and falling, rising and falling. But in truth, is there really a center to consciousness? So my dog, I bring her into my conversations a lot because she's always here with me. So there's experiencing happening for sure, right? And a type of thinking happening. You can see the wheels turning and responding, and intelligence happening for sure, sensitivity. But there is no center to her consciousness that is reflecting back to itself, saying, that means that I am thinking, I am sensing, I am feeling. We'd think that's silly for a dog to be doing that. They would be as neurotic as we are if that were the case. Well, sometimes they are neurotic, right? But that's conditioning. That's not because they believe themselves to be a something. We're all conditioned. We all have a certain type of personality. And we're all unique, aren't we? From the moment we're born, probably in the womb, there's a uniqueness and then a unique qualities and personalities. But at first, when we're really, really tiny, it's this unbounded self that's just in this wonder and innocence, and it doesn't have an I sense yet. You can see that, right, with infants and babies. And you can see when you're a parent, you can see it developing the I. And what's happening is that the self-reflective mechanism of consciousness being able to look at itself, bending on itself, going, oop, look at, there's, who is feeling this? The body sense, the I sense is born. And then it's mirrored and supported by the adults around us and by the collective. Your name is Susanne, and aren't you blah, 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 blah. You have blue eyes and blonde hair, whatever it is, brown eyes and black hair. You, and then there can also be some, whether it's a positive kind of role model or negative, that could be taken in too. Not so good what they say that you are. And so that self-reflective mechanism of mind will start to, it'll look at itself and say, and I'm unworthy. I'm, a negative image. There could be a positive one too. It's all identity that's being formed, okay? And then over time, we take ourselves to be an object in awareness too, a consciousness. We're not only being able to see what we're feeling, the reflection. We take ourselves to be separate. I am feeling. I am me. And we start to feel separate from our environment, right? Which is natural. I mean, we don't want to be bumping into things. That's normal. That's the normal kind of separation we want to feel. Well, she doesn't have a sense of I, but she doesn't bump into things. So we don't really need that. Some people, and for a while I thought so too, in the beginning I was like, oh, maybe we need that in order to be able to function. Not true. You don't need that to function. I mean, most of life besides humans doesn't have that sense, and it functions just fine. But anyway, however it happens, however it takes place, spiritual awakening is the deconstruction and going backwards and saying, what's really true? Is there really an I here, a self here, just because it feels like it? Or is that just feeling is here? The sense of I may even be here. The felt sense of I, what is that? Not just an idea, but you feel it, right? You could feel I. Where do you point when you go I? Here, I. Is there a center to consciousness in the body for you? I'm throwing out some questions. I'm not going to answer everything. I mean, you have to find out for yourself. Just because there's a sense of I, a felt sense, right? Does that mean that it's true, that really is an I? The felt sense is the arising of the separate self sense. The separate self believing in it, it creates disharmony and dysregulation. How can I say that word? Dysregulation in the nervous system. And it leads to a profound pain. And it can create anxiety, depression, contractions in the body. Ooh, it leads to so much believing ourselves to be separate. And it's not just a belief in the mind, it goes through the whole body mind. So that felt sense of separation is what it is. It doesn't prove that there is a me here. It is the effect of believing in a separate self. It's like this singing, this out of sync inside. Vibrational disharmony in the body, in the cells, and everywhere, just wherever it is, it's just. And then we take that to be ourselves, identity forms around that, and it feels bad. We feel icky, the separate self, right? And there's the proof, there's the me there, because I can feel it. And at times it feels good, and at times it feels yucky, melancholic, joyful. That's the me having all these experiences, right? No, those are just arisings, including the separate self, since it's just an arising. Look, there are a lot of teachings out there of how to go and penetrate the I. A lot of good teachings and teachers that's their, as I call it, their shtick. That's their thing. That's what they're mainly their strength. But don't stop there, of course. So a lot of my teachings is about what happens after that. But until you're able to really penetrate and see what's true, is there really a separate self here? Are you really a separate self? Is there an I, a person here? Until that's seen through, you can't really progress in the rest of what spiritual awakenings, the full circle of what I call the full circle, and some other teachers have called that, what full circle awakening, where the head, the heart, the gut, and body all come on board and wake up. We're talking about the first self-realization awakening. Is there an I here? Is it true? And Ramana spoke about, who am I? Nisargadatta. He said, I am that. There are so many teachings. There's teachers I'm sure you're fully aware of, fully. And, I recommend going out and really sitting with this. Go through the eye of the needle and see, is there really a separate self here? And who am I really? What is this? Is there a somebody here, or does it just feel like it? And I wish you well with this, and I hope that it reaps results, because you deserve to be liberated from a falsehood that creates so much distortion, illusion, and pain in one's life. Be well. Warm blessings.